Hello, this is the Gale Hill Radio Hour, sending out stories and insights from our home state of Ohio to wherever you are in the world. I'm your host, Kate Jones, having a conversation today with Meredith Pangrace, editor of the cookbook, Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen, Recipes, Resources, and Stories. Meredith, thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Kate, so much for having me.
It is so good to see you.
It's good to see you, too.
You're the creative director at Belt Publishing, which published this new cookbook. Let's begin with Belt Publishing itself. What is it? How long has it been around? What is its mission? And how and when did you get involved? I know those are a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, I can start at the beginning because actually I have been involved with Belt since the beginning. Our founder, Ann Trubeck, wrote a book called Rust Belt Chic. I want to say that was maybe in 2011 or 2012, and it was an anthology of voices of writers of the Rust Belt region. So that includes Cleveland, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and it was very well received, and Anne kind of found her passion in doing this project and founded Belt Publishing. Or Belt, actually, it started as Belt Magazine. So it started as an online publication that focused on long-form journalism.
Yes.
Yeah. So Belt Magazine is still around. It split off as a nonprofit, but now Belt Publishing came out of that, and we actually make books, printed books. I mean, we turn them into ebooks too, but it's kind of cool that the actual physical books became, the business. So I met up with Anne, and I, from the very beginning, helped her develop the visual brand for Belt Magazine and the website, and then stayed on with her to help her make the books look beautiful. So we're located here in Cleveland, Ohio. We have a storefront now in Slavic Village neighborhood. We're not an actual bookstore, but we have the space as our warehouse, and we host pop-ups. And I think we're at about 80 titles right now.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That is a lot, and these are all from the Rust Belt cities.
Yeah, so we focus on a lot of city anthologies. We have the Cincinnati anthology, the Pittsburgh anthology, where there are collections of essays from writers of that region. We also do a lot of academic books that focus on the Midwest and Midwest culture, and we are just branching out into the cookbook field. So the book that I'm here to talk about today is our third cookbook, so of regionally focused cookbooks.
That is great. So you've been a graphic designer for how long now?
Probably since I was a child. I come from a long line of printers, actually. My granddad was a printer. My dad has been in the print business.
Printer's ink in his blood, or in your blood, too.
For sure. And my dad, being very tech savvy, he kind of took printing and lithography into digital printing and digital production and stuff. So we always had Macintosh computers, in the house before anyone else did. And I remember learning Illustrator and Photoshop from the very beginnings of those products. So
wow. So were you what age at that time when you were working?
Well, I worked for my dad in high school.
Okay.
But I think, I kind of have a memory of being a kid where he showed me, what Photoshop could do to images on a screen, kind of like change people's hair color and swap heads and stuff. And I remember being really amazed by all that. Yeah. So
great.
It's been in my blood. I, studied fine art in college, but then went to work for my dad and learn more about the technical side of graphic arts for a couple years, and then realized, actually the creative side is more what I wanted. So focused then on that. So forever.
All right. So judging from your personal stories in the cookbook, you're also a good writer.
Thank you.
And so when you're asked about what you do you answer graphic designer, writer, or musician, which is another one of your talents.
Right. So that the music part came a little later on. I don't think it was until my 30s that I kind of jumped into music again. I took piano as a kid, but then kind of had a love affair with the accordion in my 30s.
How did you develop a love affair with the accordion?
I know, right? It's not the most common thing. Well, like in relation to the book too, I have a Slovak heritage, and I think, having a strong Eastern European background, you grow up with hearing that sound, right, of the accordion. And at the, traditional weddings, there was always a polka band. And so it was just this beautiful, nostalgic sound always. And someone brought one over to my house, like a little toy one at some point, and I hadn't heard an accordion for a long time, and I picked it up, and because of the piano background, I kind of knew the right-hand side. It was a piano accordion, and from then on, it just became this weird obsession. And what's fortunate for me is that there aren't a ton of accordion players in Cleveland. You would think there would be, but a lot of them are polka players. But if you're looking to play with folk music or rock music, there's not a lot of competition, so you can get pretty good gigs.
That's excellent.
So then that became another part of what I do. So
well, one of my uncles, my dad had 3 brothers, and the only musical one was Uncle Chris. And he used to play accordion at the old Euclid Beach and the
No
stage
way.
there and everything.
Okay.
Yes. And
That is
so
amazing.
I would hear, and there were probably even pictures of that time. He was in a band and everything.
Yeah.
But very
Oh, I
musical.
love that.
The only part of the family, the Jalopis family, Greek family, which was musical, was Uncle Chris's.
I love that. And it's one of the great things about playing the accordion is that a lot of times people at shows will come up to me with a wonderful story like that they had an uncle that played, or an aunt, or a grandma, or, they were cleaning out a family member's house and they found one in the attic, and they get excited to kind of hear one in a modern setting,
Yes.
not at a polka party.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
That it's still a very relevant instrument,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you play accordion with...
Yeah, so Maura Rogers and the Bellows is the first band that, that's definitely where my heart is. I answered an ad on Craigslist. Again, not a lot of competition. I was looking to kind of learn, how to play more with other people and expand my self-practice. And I found Maura Rogers, who is an amazing singer-songwriter, and she was looking for an accordion and starting a band. And so... Gosh, I think it's maybe been about 10 years or so since I've been with her and her band, and it's just been such a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Well, I ran into you at an anniversary party.
Yes,
It was a garden party in the summer, this past summer.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen each other in years and years and years.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. I did not even realize it was you playing with Maura Rogers and the other band members. And it was so enjoyable, and just absolutely enjoyed our time there. And then we ran into each other on the way out, and we got to talking, and it's like, oh my gosh, Meredith.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that's something that I've always been interested in. It's like you don't have to like start out and be one thing, starting out as a visual artist in graphic design, super rewarding. I'm never going to let that go, but it's fun to add things to the list, right? So getting into music, in my 30s, doing this book in my 40s, I don't even know what I'm going to do in my 50s. I can't wait.
I know. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
What a discovery that all is.
Yeah, and
isn't
I think you do the same, Kate. So
yes,
it's inspiring.
Yes, it's very fun.
Yeah.
So how did the idea for Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen come about anyway?
Well, like I said, with, working at Belt Publishing and kind of expanding into the cookbook field, we had this amazing woman, Bonnie Toss, that put together the Belt Cookie Table book. And that was a surprise success for us. It was super fun. For people that don't know, there's a Youngstown tradition. It's in other Rust Belt cities too, of the cookie table. Do you know what the cookie table is?
I do not.
Okay. So the cookie table was when immigrant families would have weddings and they couldn't afford a wedding cake. And so they would ask the guests to bring cookies. And so it was a bit of a showcase because
charming.
everyone would want to bring their best recipes. And so there would be the cookie table at the wedding, and that has survived on. I was at a wedding about 2 years ago, and it was a Polish wedding, and they had a cookie table. They had a cake as well, but then they had a beautiful table of cookies. So Bonnie had this great idea to reach out on social media, which is very much how I reached out for my book, to get these recipes from people and put them into a compilation. And so being a big fan of Bonnie and what she did, I had this idea because it was the pandemic. I'll start a little bit at the beginning of that story. It was the pandemic. A lot of us were in our kitchen spending time experimenting, maybe looking for new challenges. We had extra time to make things from scratch. That's nothing unique to my experience. But we normally have a traditional New Year's Day dinner, which involves sauerkraut, kibasi, stuffed cabbage, pierogies, all these, very Eastern European foods. And without going to restaurants, without all being able to gather together, the alternate plan was just a small family gathering at my parents' house. And for some reason, I volunteered to make the food, all of it, and to make it vegan. I love a lot of the traditional food, but not having eaten meat in many, many years, I was always missing out on some aspect or another. So I kind of just decided I was going to take control and make everything not only vegetarian but vegan with that extra challenge.
Wow! And your family actually came.
My family is awesome. I mean, there were only 4 of them there, so I didn't have to convince a big crowd.
Okay.
Which was good. I didn't have to try to please my picky nieces or anything. But yeah, so I did some research, and I got some paprikash recipe, exploring that and kind of modifying some of those things. Stuffed cabbage is something that I've been making with, I learned to make with my grandmother years and years ago, and modifying that. And it really, my family was not only tolerant of it, but they actually were really excited and they loved everything. And so when I posted some pictures of that in one of the, I think it was a Facebook group called Veganizing Your Recipes, people had really great responses. They had a lot of questions, but then they started posting a response to my pictures of what they were making. And so that got me really excited because other people were just as passionate about, this was my family recipe from, I found this in my grandma's cookbook and I made this modification so that I could eat it and my family could eat it. And so that response was really what got me super excited of making it a community cookbook. I don't feel like I have the right to write a cookbook by any means. I love cooking. I've been an amateur home cook for, a long time, but there was no way I was going to do this myself. I needed that community. And that was the part that was really fun because that then brought the diversity of it too.
Absolutely. Yes. So what will readers discover and cooks discover in Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen?
Well, if they're new to plant-based cooking, I would hope that they would not be intimidated by it or not feel like it's something that is, super healthy and isn't going to taste good. So I would think that if you are new to it, you're going to find how actually pretty simple it is to make these substitutions and how a lot of these flavors and ingredients are ones that you are really familiar with. If you are a vegan or used to plant-based, I would like to think that you'll find some new stuff because there is a lot of diversity. For anyone coming to it, you're going to find some great recipes, but you're also going to get these nice stories, right? Because with it being a community cookbook and doing all the outreach, I have such a nice sampling of home chefs and professional chefs. It's pretty Cleveland focused just because I'm Cleveland, but we have Chicago contributors and Pittsburgh and Detroit.
Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that having all those different authors contribute brought in all, it's not just it's the Slovak or Polish or kind of Cleveland idea. We have all kinds of great stuff in there. So
I agree. And I also like something that you said at the very beginning of the cookbook, and that Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen is unpretentious. accessible, and fun. I really like it that you're promising that the book is unpretentious. Why is that important to you?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of jokes that, the vegans can be the butt of jokes. And I'm kind of used to that. Also being an accordion player, I'm used to being the butt of the joke. And so I think when you're continuously the butt of the joke, you want to try to change, why that joke even happened. So the vegans being made fun of for, being preachy or talking about it too much, or, having this kind of nose in the air, like, oh, I'm better than you, right? I didn't want that to come across at all.
And it certainly does not.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. And also with the types of ingredients. I mean, I'm an avid cookbook collector, and, I'll often be really excited about a new book that comes, in the mail, and I'm going through it, and there's, beautiful photos and all these things, but I would have to make a lot of trips to the store or a lot of, Amazon purchases to get the ingredients, because they're hard things to find, or they're saying you need, to have certain spices that are only from this region. And I think that stuff can be just a little, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's very beautiful. But I think there's just something very Rust Belty about, you can just go to your regular old grocery store and get a cabbage and some potatoes. And some nuts, and you can really make a beautiful dinner out of those things.
Yes, and it's comfortable and and it's comforting.
Yes.
Both of those things.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
So let's talk about some of the stories in the book. For example, the story that accompanies Grandma's Mountain Stew recipe, contributed by a home chef in Lakewood, Ohio. I really loved that she says in her story that vegan dishes helped keep her grandpa alive for an extra 20 years.
Yeah, so that is a great one, and just the name of that recipe is one of my favorites in the book, a mountain stew. Dana's story in there, I think part of, again, the community aspect of this is the contributors have different reasons, and having the reason of health is definitely one reason why you might switch to plant-based diet or try to incorporate a little more plant-based food. And so to really have that strong of a story that, by lowering his cholesterol and getting him off some of the unhealthy foods that he was eating to make him last longer, live longer is really a very, very cool thing.
And there was a lot of gratitude in that story.
And then the other part of the story too is that it was the grandma, right, that was cooking for him, and how she, as a grandma, so I'm not sure how old she would be, but she was going to the library and researching the vegetarian and vegan recipes.
Right.
And I love that, because
and before she bought them.
She
wanted to try them out, make sure that they cut mustard, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. So taking that initiative that I'm sure it was very foreign to her, to look for those kind of things. I'm sure that's not what she was used to, but she was doing that to keep her husband healthy and alive, and that she loved him, came out of love. So
very sweet.
Yeah.
Then on a totally different note, the fenugreek pancake story and recipe from a professional chef in Chicago. And she's working on her own cookbook.
Yeah, which is actually pretty exciting. There's a couple in the outreach. There's a couple different professional chefs that responded that either they were working on a cookbook of their own, or they were starting, physical. A lot of them were pop-ups, doing pop-up food events, but now we're looking for their brick and mortar stores. So a lot of people that were really finding more of an audience for the types of food they were making.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is great.
And her cookbook's going to be vegan, gluten-free, Indian/Indian fusion recipes.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So when people say like, "Oh, isn't that a little niche, Rust Belt vegan?" I'm like, actually, no. You can. I think sometimes the more niche you are with your cookbook, the bigger the audience is going to be.
Yeah, because people can't find.
Right.
Find those recipes otherwise.
Right.
So yeah, it's really cool. Okay, another one. Summer pasta with creamy sauce from Heather Donaldson, the Cincinnati-based owner of Mad Cheese, which this is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
the mad cheese creates vegan cheeses. That's not so amazing. But also vegan charcuterie, which is, to me, amazing. So, and then this particular dish is one of the elegant vegan dishes that Heather likes to make.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So Heather's story of, being on the West Coast and then coming back to her Midwest roots and being able to start her business here and it be successful is fantastic. And vegan cheeses are a tough thing. I mean, from going vegetarian to vegan, that's usually the biggest issue, or is that people can't give up the cheese. But she's definitely, not only Heather, but a lot of other producers are finding ways to do it. Her pasta recipe in here, this was a completely new one for me, was to use hearts of palm, canned hearts of palm pureed.
I love hearts of palm. So that's fascinating to me.
Pureed into a cream sauce, which is creamy, but it still has this lightness. So I think that's why I liked, the elegant aspect of it. And it's beautiful with the fresh tomatoes and the greens in there. But yeah, it's really a beautiful one. For other cheese recipes, a lot of times cashews are used, nutritional yeast. So, and then talking about the cheese a little bit, there is a part up front in the portion that I wrote about make it versus buy it. So there are a lot of vegan cheeses that you can now find. It used to be that you could only find them at health food stores or specialty stores, but those products, as the demand increases and also as technology improves, are becoming more and more accessible. However, if you prefer to kind of do things from scratch, if you have the time, we do have some recommendations about how to do some of those products yourself.
Great. One more story. The roasted squash soup with crispy chickpeas from Jody Berg, the CEO of Vitamix.
Yeah.
And what I love is that she writes that her grandparents became vegetarians in the 1930s and raised their children that way. That was not very common, I'm sure.
Not at all. And I knew when I was having the idea for this book, I needed to get Vitamix in there.
Yes.
Not that this program is sponsored by Vitamix, but the Vitamix, as in any kitchen, is kind of this cultish, amazing tool. It's been around forever. People that have them swear by them. The one that's on my counter, I use it almost every day. But the coolest thing about the Vitamix is that it's an Ohio-based company. It's right here in North Olmsted. So that combination of, manufacturing, that they make those things here in Ohio, and that it's always been a, big supporter of whole food and plant-based. I mean, I don't think they really promote 100% veganism, but just health and whole foods more, I think they focus on.
And not even organic, like it's really, I don't know. It's not that you have to be a certain way. You just want to use the best whole foods you can find.
Exactly. Yeah, like the less processed, the better.
Right.
So it's great to have Vitamix be in this book and have their story in there. I was really happy that they were.
I was really glad to see her in there.
Yeah.
And she has a cookbook that just came out too, not too long ago, and that was it's some huge anniversary of Vitamix.
Yeah, and I
don't know, however many years
it could be
it's been.
100, right? So
it was at least 100. It could have even been longer, it seems.
Yeah, and I believe it's a community, like a lot of their customers contributed recipes to it too. I'm not sure if it's out yet. I think I pre-ordered it on Amazon.
Yeah, I thought it was out, but I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to look for it.
we're not talking about that one today, but it does happen to be another one of those.
And it's cool too because she is the female CEO, right? So it's the granddaughter, and as someone that has been part of their family business, it just all those themes kind of align.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that too.
Yeah.
So you stopped eating meat as a teenager. You were what, 16?
I think 16.
Yeah. Why did you do that?
It's so long ago that I hardly remember why, but I think it was because my brother did for some reason. My older brother, that I always just, did kind of everything that he did because he was cool, started, I want to say, for health reasons. And I was usually a pretty big meat eater. As a kid, I remember I would just eat the meat on my plate. I didn't really like vegetables. But when he made that switch and then my mom started cooking meals for him, it really kind of opened up my mind and my palate to new foods. And then I just kind of started to feel better. And then when I went to college and I was able to make my own food choices and there were a lot of other vegetarians, it was just kind of something that felt right and I felt good. And when I thought about some of the bigger picture things, with animal rights and environmental things, it just kind of felt good. So,
yes. Yes.
Everybody's got their own story.
Oh, absolutely.
Of why.
It was really great that your grandmother, who was very well versed in making Eastern European staples, such as stuffed cabbage, didn't judge your choice to become a vegetarian. Instead, she stuffed a few cabbage leaves with rice, minus the meat, just for you. And it reminded me of my yaya, my Greek grandmother, who did the same thing, because I didn't eat meat, red meat, for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And and she was a wizard. She had this tiny little kitchen, and she was a wizard in the kitchen. And she would just produce things truly magically. And she would make all kinds of Greek dishes without the meat for me.
I love that.
And it was the same kind of thing. And grandmothers are so loving.
Yeah, they really are. And I think, when we were talking before we started this interview, just casually about, bringing together. And I think that is something that, we've learned that from our grandmothers, and then we want to kind of pass that on.
Yes,
So.
and you do in your book, in your cookbook, because like your grandmother, you don't judge. As you say at the end of the book's introduction, more than anything, this book is not going to criticize you for whatever choices you make in your diet.
Right.
I love that
and
so much.
along those lines, we have recipes in here that are whole food based, right? So the Vitamix recipes and lots of others are, it's things that you can just grow in your garden and then you can make a beautiful dinner. But we also then realize sometimes life is challenging and you may not have time. So there's some shortcuts. There's, I call them some lowbrow recipes. So we kind of try to cover all those things, and whatever you can do is good. Yeah.
Yes. I'd like to mention, too, that the book is dedicated to the warm kitchen memories that unite us all, that whole coming together idea. And that is so important. How do we go about keeping an open mind about food and all of our other differences?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great question. It's really something to think about. I mean, we're so blessed that we live in a world where we have food choices, or we live in a country that we have choices that we can make about our diet. And it's really unfortunate when those choices divide us, when, we have people that might mock someone, for their keto diet or their vegan diet.
Or their all meat diet.
Or their all meat diet, right?
I mean, because just what you were saying before about, that haughtiness about,
Right.
you eat this way,
Yeah.
People, we just all have to eat something.
We all have to eat something. And I think, just like we choose what we wear, we choose who we want to hang out with. We can make these choices and they can be different. We can still all be in a kitchen and enjoy a great meal together.
Yes. Yes. And what's really cool is that there are a lot of delicious sounding dishes in this book. And, while not everything is, necessarily, for when I go through it, not my taste, but that's true for any
For sure.
Any cookbook.
Right.
Because there are just some flavors that I don't like as much as others, or some styles of food that I don't like as much.
Yeah.
But I saw a lot of things in here I'd like to try.
Great, yeah. Well, we did try, to make sure we covered a lot of different types of cuisine, because that also is what the Rust Belt is. There's all kinds of people, all kinds of groups immigrated to this region and brought with them their traditions and their foods. So
Yeah.
yes, but yeah, you're not gonna like everything, and that is
Nor should you,
Nor
because
should you.
there's no
Right.
cookbook ever that has,
Right, exactly.
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think, though, that trying even a few of the 70 recipes in this book, aren't there something like 70?
Yeah, there's like some quick shortcuts. I think the actual contributors, I think there's about 60, but then I have a lot of my shortcut things in my Make It Buy It. So I think there might be 70.
It's,
yeah.
I counted them in the index.
Okay. I should really know how many exactly.
Anyway, I think that trying even a few of them and reading the stories will really help people understand each other maybe a little bit better.
Yes, for sure. I hope so too.
What a great thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, would you like to give a shout out to your contributors? You
Oh,
have
my
quite
goodness.
a few of them.
Yes.
And I don't mean by name,
Right.
but, just...
For sure.
a
I mean, this, like
thank
I
you.
said, I could not have written a cookbook. I had no business, probably even including
Well, I think
my
you have
own.
a lot of business doing it.
But the contributors were amazing. And, when I would put the call out and get a response from someone that was just as excited as I was, it was thrilling. Or, maybe they would submit a story and I would, kind of, my eyes would well up with tears. Like, it was just a beautiful thing. So, yes, I mean, I am thanking all of the contributors, the home chefs that were willing to have the nerve and the confidence to contribute. Home chefs sometimes can be a little humble and say, oh, it's, this isn't that great. But the home chefs contributed fantastic stuff. But then the professional chefs too, because, there are some here where I'm like, wow, I'm just so thrilled that they contributed that, because I think sometimes in the spirit of community, because a chef might have a little vegan secret that they might not want to share, but the ones in this book were so generous in sharing some of their tips that are really useful. So yes,
that's
thank you to
wonderful.
everybody for sure.
So what is the official publication date of this book?
So it publishes December 1st.
December
officially.
1st, okay.
They're available now for pre-order. But they are back from the printer. So even if you pre-order now, it'll get to you really soon. So.
Yes, because I did pre-order.
Yes.
And I received my book before
Wonderful.
our
Yes,
interview,
before
and
the
I was
publishing
very
date.
happy
Right.
about that.
Yeah.
So where can listeners get more information? Where can they buy your book?
So because we are a small independent press, we do ask that you buy directly from us. So beltpublishing.com is our store. You can get the Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen there. You can also pick up that awesome cookie table book. I'll also give a shout out to our Pawpaw cookbook. Are you familiar with Pawpaws?
I've heard of it, but
Yeah,
no,
so
I'm
the
not
pawpaws
familiar at
are a
all.
native fruit, and it's real big with foragers right now in the foraging movement. And
Native
so,
to where?
To this region.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I thought
Even
that was
in
somewhere
Cleveland.
else
No.
completely,
No.
like from the south or
There are
west.
some people that actually plant them in the city. Actually, one of the contributors to our book that lives in Collinwood has a couple paw trees in her
Oh
yard.
my goodness!
Yeah. And so we had our writer do a full pawpaw cookbook. Everything includes pawpaws, which are free if you can find them. And the right time of year. So that book, too, all that stuff is on beltpublishing.com.
That is so cool. I want to look up pawpaw.
Yeah, it's
Have you
super fascinating.
had pawpaw?
I have not been blessed enough to have a pawpaw. There's a roadside place on Madison in Cleveland in the city. It's an urban little roadside urban garden that sells. And I was there getting some tomatoes, and I recognized the pawpaw tree, and I almost fell over. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And he's like, "Yes, we have 3, but they're so in demand that I didn't get there in time when they were finally ripe, and they were gone." So. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. That's something to look forward to.
Yeah. So you can get them. You can get all
definitely.
these at Belt Publishing. But then I also have rustbeltvegankitchen.com that has some information. And most importantly, I'd like to push the Instagram account, because what I'm kind of asking is to kind of keep that community going. So if people are making anything in the book, or if they disagree with something in the book, if they make pierogies a different way, or they believe that a Polish dog is some something completely different. That's not in our book. I want to kind of keep that conversation going. So Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen on Instagram too.
Oh, that's excellent. And who knows? You might have a second book sometime.
I would love to have a volume 2, especially if there's people that would like to challenge the recipes for sure, or say that we forgot one that's really very Rust Belt or very important. Because I think I can even think of some that I'd be like, oh, we missed that. So volume 2 for sure.
The Rust Belt Vegan Kitchen Challenge.
Yes, right.
It'd be a show on the
too.
Food Network
right.
sometime.
Right. Who makes the best vegan Chicago deep dish pizza?
Oh, that's great. And what people who are, used to the real, the quote unquote, the real thing, think of,
yes.
Yes,
right.
That would be very
Which
interesting.
is actually, we did, I mentioned it in the book, I had a Sunday weenie roast. So that was something that my great-grandma used to do. It was like a casual Sunday dinner where you roast hot dogs over a fire.
Uh-huh.
And so I did that with friends, meat eaters, vegetarians, and vegans. And we did a whole taste test of all different kinds of vegan sausages. And that was really interesting to kind of see, what the meat eaters' responses were to some of these.
Did they like some of them?
It was really interesting because it seemed like the meat eaters almost preferred ones that were a little more processed, like a little more like a homogeneous ballpark hot dog, where the vegans and vegetarians like the ones that had a little more texture, a little more flavor. You could actually maybe see some vegetables in there.
Uh-huh.
So it was interesting. It
was
really interesting.
That makes sense to me because the processed ones would be more hot dog-like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, Meredith, is there anything else you'd like to say? This has been an utter delight.
It really has. I just want to say thanks to you, Kate. It's been awesome to reconnect with you after all these years and have this conversation.
Same here. It's been awesome for me as well. Okay, this is Kate Jones with the Gale Hill Radio Hour. We'll be right back. This is Kate again, presenting for your listening pleasure 92 Days from the album Always by Maura Rogers and the Bellows, courtesy of Meredith Pangrace, Maura Rogers, and the rest of the band.
Ginger screaming, and these words beg for a song. Hate how I've been feeling. I'm feeling trapped inside. I'm afraid that I'm afraid of old habits that have died. So don't put me in a dress, and don't make me change my name. If this heart grows dark, can you love me just the same? Well, I spent 92 days alone, staring in the mirror, staring down myself. I was staring down my fear. I know I've been given something more than most. I'm shaking